kepala बेटी आसमा जलानी काम कर रहा है काम कर रहा है काम कर रहा है अच्छा ठीक है Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. We will now begin our session, which is titled No Land for Hope, Displaced People and Asylum Seekers. My name is Khushal Khan. I am a member of the Central Organizing Committee of National Democratic Movement. It's a newly formed political party based out of Pakhtunkhwa. I would like to invite our distinguished guests for this panel, and I'd like to begin with Barrister Akil Malik Saab, Federal Minister of State for Law and Justice and a member of National Assembly. We have Ms. Philippa Candler, representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Pakistan. We have Dr. Sabagul Khatak Saiba, who's a feminist researcher and coordinator for Pakistan's Humanitarian Observatory. We have Muhammad Mudassar Javed Saab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Society for Human Rights and Prisoners Aid, Pakistan. We are also expecting Mr. Shafi Jan Saab, who's the provincial spokesperson of PTI's provincial government in Pakhtunkhwa, to join us. He hasn't as of right now, but as soon as he does, we will take him online. I'd like to request our distinguished speakers to please join me on the stage so that we can begin our discussion. Thank you. I would like to begin by thanking the organizers of the Asma Jahangir conference for including this important session in the conference and for allowing us the opportunity to discuss this important issue, which is usually ignored in the mainstream. I'm also thankful to our distinguished guests who have given us their time today to be here with us and to share their thoughts and views on the issue. Pakistan has been hosting millions of Afghans for over 4 decades. During this entire period, Pakistan has neither signed the 1951 Refugee Convention nor enacted any laws for refugees. The only serious attempt for refugee legislation was made by Mohsin Dawud, who is the chairman of our party, NDM, during the previous parliamentary tenure. He submitted the National Refugee Bill in 2023 in the National Assembly, but the bill was never tabled, as has been the case with some other human rights related bills. Over the years, successive governments have periodically initiated deportation drives targeting Afghans. The most recent drive was launched by the caretaker government in 2023, despite the fact that it did not have the democratic mandate to do so. The current government has since continued with this drive. Initially, it targeted Afghans without documentation or valid visas, but it was later expanded to include proof of registration card holders as well as Afghan citizenship card holders. Just to give you an idea, around 1.15 million Afghans have been deported in 2025 alone from Pakistan. There have been widespread reports of harassment, unlawful detention, and arrests of Afghans. Numerous accounts point to bribery, with Afghans being forced to pay large sums of money to authorities, including the police, who are responsible for enforcing the drive. The process of acquiring or renewing visas has been made extremely difficult, with authorities often failing to respond for prolonged periods. Those whose visas expire risk arrest and deportation. international law. ابھی مجھے بتایا گیا ہے کہ شفیع جان صاحب ہیز جوائنڈ us as well, if we can take him online. جی السلام علیکم شفیع صاحب، آپ کو میری آواز آ رہی ہے؟
جی وعلیکم السلام.
جی شکریہ، بہت شکریہ شفیع صاحب. آپ اس وقت مصروف بھی ہیں اور آپ کا بہت شکریہ کہ آپ نے ٹائم نکالا آج اور ہمیں جوائن کیا اس سیشن میں. یہ سیشن افغان ریفیوجیز اور ان کی جو موجودہ صورتحال ہے اس حوالے سے ہے، اور یہاں پہ ہمارے پاس وفاقی حکومت کے نمائندے بھی ہیں، باقی ہمارے پاس ایکسپرٹس بھی ہیں، UNHCR کے بھی ریپرزینٹیو موجود ہیں. بطور نمائندہ صوبائی حکومت پختونخوا کے آپ سے جو ہم جاننا چاہ رہے تھے وہ یہ تھا کہ وزیر اعظم جب تھے عمران خان صاحب، انہوں نے ریفیوجیز کے لیے سٹیزنشپ کا اعلان کیا تھا. یہ شاید 2018-19 کی بات تھی، لیکن اس کے بعد اس پہ کوئی عمل درآمد نہیں ہو سکا. اور اس اعلان میں جب انہوں نے ذکر کیا تھا تو اس پہ افغان ریفیوجیز کا بھی ذکر تھا. تو ایک تو وہ، اس کے بعد جو ایکسپلشن کا ڈرائیو شروع ہوا ہے 2023 سے جو چل رہا ہے ابھی تک، اس کے اوپر عمران خان صاحب کے کافی بیانات آتے رہے ہیں کہ وہ اس ایکسپلشن کو اپوز کرتے رہے ہیں. لیکن جو ہم نے صورتحال دیکھی ہے پختونخوا میں بھی، اسپیشلی جو سچویشن ہے اس میں جو ہمیں نظر آ رہا ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ ایکسپلشن ڈرائیو پختونخوا میں بھی ہو رہی ہے، جاری ہے اور چل رہی ہے. شاید اس کی شدت وہ نہ ہو جو اسلام آباد یا باقی جگہوں میں ہے، لیکن موجود ہے. تو اس حوالے سے ہم آپ سے جاننا چاہ رہے تھے کہ آپ کی صوبائی حکومت کا اس کے اوپر کیا پوزیشن ہے، موقف ہے، آپ کی پارٹی کا کیا پوزیشن ہے، اسپیشلی گیون آپ کے جو بانی ہیں PTI کے، جو ان کی ایک اسٹیٹڈ ایک پوزیشن بہت کلیئر ہے. تو اس کے باوجود ہمیں کنفیوژن کیوں یا ایمبیگوٹی کیوں نظر آتی ہے صوبائی حکومت کے اور PTI کی صوبائی جو سچویشن ہے اس حوالے سے؟ جی شفیع صاحب.
سب سے پہلے آپ کا شکریہ. جہاں تک افغان ریفیوجیز کی بات ہے اور خیبر پختونخوا کی حکومت کی بات ہے، یا تحریک انصاف کا ایک سٹانس ہے ان کے بارے میں، وہ بڑا کلیئر ہے. ہم یہ چاہتے ہیں کہ آپ نے دیکھا ہوگا کہ رشیا کے وار کے بعد یہ لوگ یہاں پہ آئے اور یہاں پہ آباد ہوئے، ان کو 40 سال سے زیادہ ہو گئی ہے. اور آپ کو یاد ہوگا جب عمران خان صاحب کی حکومت تھی تب بھی عمران خان صاحب بڑی کلیئر تھے اس بارے میں، اور ان کو سینوں صوبوں سے جو ہے وہ زبردستی نکالا جا رہا ہے. جبکہ خیبر پختونخوا حکومت جو ہے وہ یہ بات کر رہی ہے کہ ان کو اگر واپس جانا بھی ہے تو یہ اپنی مرضی سے واپس جائے، ڈگنیٹی کے ساتھ واپس جائے. اور کئی خاندان یہاں سے خیبر پختونخوا سے جا بھی رہے ہیں، یہاں پہ کیمپس بھی خالی ہو رہے ہیں، اور خیبر پختونخوا کی حکومت ان کو بڑی عزت سے بڑی ڈگنیٹی کے ساتھ واپس بھیج رہی ہے، کیونکہ یہ انسانی حقوق کے خلاف ورزی بھی ہے کہ آپ ان کو زبردستی نکال رہے ہیں. آپ نے دیکھا ہوگا کہ جو لوگ واپس جا رہے ہیں تو حکومت ان کو ٹرانسپورٹیشن کے مد میں بھی اسسٹ کر رہی ہے، باقی چیزوں میں بھی اسسٹ کر رہی ہے. اور آپ نے یہ بھی دیکھا ہوگا کہ 9/11 کے بعد جب ایک پوری دنیا میں ایک سیکیورٹی سچویشن بنی، ان کے ذہن میں ابھی بھی وہی چیزیں ہیں جو کہ افغانستان میں ہیں. جس طرح تحریک انصاف باقی پالیسیز پہ یہ بات کرتی ہے کہ ہم بند کمروں کے فیصلے کو مسلط نہیں ہونے دیں گے، تو ہمارا سٹانس ان کے معاملے میں بھی یہی ہے کہ ایک جو بند کمرے میں فیصلہ ہوا، بند کمرے میں ایک پالیسی بنائی گئی کہ ان لوگوں کو واپس بھیجا جائے، اور سیکورٹی کو کنسرن بنا کے یہ پالیسی بنائی گئی ہے. تو ہم یہ چاہتے ہیں کہ تمام لوگوں کو آن بورڈ لینا چاہیے تھا اس پالیسی کے بارے میں. آپ کو خیبر پختونخوا کی حکومت سے بھی اپنی جو کنسرن ہے وہ پوچھنے چاہیے تھے. اس طرح خیبر بلوچستان کے بھی، سندھ کے بھی، پنجاب کے بھی، سب کو ایک یونیفارم پالیسی بنانی چاہیے تھی، نہ کہ بند کمروں میں بیٹھ کے ہمارے ڈائنامکس کا آپ کو نہیں پتا اور آپ ایک پالیسی بناتے ہیں. ان لوگوں کی رشتہ داریاں یہاں پہ ہیں، یہ لوگ یہاں سے 40 سال ہو گئے یہاں پہ رہتے ہوئے، ان لوگوں کے کاروبار یہاں پہ ہے. سڈنلی سب کچھ اس طرح نہیں ہو سکتا جس طرح یہ کرنا چاہتے ہیں. جب باقی صوبوں سے ان کو نکالا گیا تو یہ خیبر پختونخوا ہے. خیبر پختونخوا کی حکومت نے ہر ایک جو بھی ان کے بیٹرمنٹ کے لیے کر سکتے تھے ہم نے کیا، اور اب جو فیملیز واپس جانا چاہتے ہیں ان کو ہم بڑی ڈگنیفائی وے سے واپس کر رہے ہیں. کوئی زور زبردستی نہیں ہو رہی، کوئی ان کو زبردستی نہیں نکالا جا رہا. اور آپ کو یاد ہوگا کہ جنیوا کنونشن میں 1951 میں جو ہوا تھا تو اس میں جو پالیسی بنی تھی پوری دنیا کے لیے، وہ پوری دنیا کی ریفیوجیز کی پالیسی تھی، اور اس پالیسی میں بڑا واضح ہے کہ آپ کسی بھی ریفیوجی کو زور زبردستی واپس نہیں بھیج سکتے. تو اس روز سے بھی اگر آپ دیکھ لیں یا خیبر پختونخوا حکومت کا رول دیکھ لیں، بالکل سیکورٹی کنسرن کو بنا کے ان کو واپس بھیجا تو جا رہا ہے، لیکن یہ ایک بہانہ نہیں بن سکتا. آپ نے فینس لگائی $5 ملین کی، آپ نے بارڈر پہ فینس لگائی، تو وہاں سے یہ چیزیں مانیٹر ہونی چاہیے. سیکورٹی کو کنسرن بنا کے ان لوگوں کو واپس بھیجنا ان کے ساتھ بھی زیادتی ہے. اور آپ ایک جو ریفیوجی کا جو جنیوا کنونشن میں ایک پالیسی بنی، آپ اس کی بھی خلاف ورزی کر رہے ہیں. تو خیبر پختونخوا حکومت کی اور عمران خان صاحب کی بڑی واضح ہدایات ان کے بارے میں ہے کہ جو واپس جانا چاہتے ہیں اپنی مرضی سے بالکل ان کو واپس بھیجا جائے گا, اور جو واپس نہیں جانا چاہتے یا ان کو کچھ ٹائم ریکوائر ہے تو بالکل ان کو ٹائم بھی دیا جائے گا, اور وہ ساری چیزیں خیبر پختونخوا حکومت کر بھی رہی ہے.
جی بہت شکریہ شفیع صاحب, اینڈ ود the permission of our other distinguished guests, because I think Shafi Saab might have to leave, so I'll quickly ask him a follow-up question based on the discussion. شفیع صاحب, آپ نے ذکر کیا کہ پختونخوا حکومت کوشش کری ہے کہ عزت کے ساتھ افغان ریفیوجیز کو واپس بھیجا جائے, لیکن جو ہمارا اپنا ایکسپیرینس ہے, جو مثلاً ہمیں کچھ کیسز کا معلوم ہے, تو مثال کے طور پہ خیبر میں جو ڈیٹینشن سینٹر ہے افغان ریفیوجیز کا, اس تک وکیلوں کی, ہیومن رائٹس ایکٹیوسٹ کی کوئی ایکسیس نہیں ہے. جب ہم نے کوشش کی ایکسیس کرنے کی تو ہمیں منع کیا گیا, ہمیں کہا گیا کہ یہ سیکیورٹی کے معاملات ہیں, اس پہ ہر کسی کا داخلہ ممکن نہیں ہے. ایک تو یہ, دوسرا یہ کہ آپ کی بات اپنی جگہ پہ کہ جیسے آپ نے کہا کہ آپ کوشش کریں کہ عزت اور ڈگنیٹی کے ساتھ ان کو واپس بھیجا جائے, لیکن کافی سارے ایسے کیسز ابھی ریسنٹلی رپورٹ ہو رہے ہیں مختلف اضلاع سے, جہاں پہ باقاعدہ چھاپے مارے جا رہے ہیں, ان کو گرفتار کیا جا رہا ہے, اور بہت ہی جس طرح کے باقی کچھ ملک کے حصوں میں ہو رہا ہے رویہ جس طرح سے ان کے ساتھ, وہی رویہ شاید ایک حد تک ابھی پختونخوا میں ہمیں ہوتے ہوئے نظر آ رہا ہے. تو اس کی کوئی وجوہات ہے یا کوئی صوبائی حکومت کی پرائیورٹی میں یہ ایشو ہے کہ اس کو دیکھا جائے گا اور اس کو ریزالو کرنے کی کوشش کی جائے گی؟
دیکھیے بالکل صوبائی حکومت جو ہے, خیبر پختونخوا کی جو حکومت ہے, جیسے میں نے پہلے کہا کہ ہم بڑے واضح ہیں اس بارے میں. ہاں آپ کی بات ٹھیک ہے کہ کچھ ایریاز میں ہمیں بھی کیسز رپورٹ ہوئے ہیں, کچھ جگہوں پہ ہمیں یہ ایشوز بھی آئے ہیں کہ ان کو زبردستی وہاں سے نکالا جا رہا ہے, یا وہاں کی جو بجلی ہے وہ بند کر دی گئی ہے, یا وہاں پہ جو صحت کے مراکز ہیں وہ بند کیے جا رہے ہیں, یا وہاں پہ جو تعلیمی ادارے ہیں وہ بند کیے جا رہے ہیں. تو خیبر پختونخوا حکومت نے اس پہ سٹینڈ بھی لیا, اور وہاں پہ کسی کو بھی آپ یہ نہیں دیکھیں گے کہ شکایت ہوگی خیبر پختونخوا حکومت کی طرف سے کہ انہوں نے یہ رویہ اختیار کیا. آپ کو پتا ہے کہ یہ چیزیں کہیں اور سے بھی ہینڈل ہوتی ہے, کئی ایجنسیز, سیکیورٹی ایجنسیز بھی اس میں انوالو ہے, تو ان کی بھی کچھ ریزرویشن ان کے بارے میں ہے. تو ان ریزرویشن کے ساتھ صوبائی حکومت جو ہے وہ ان ٹچ بھی ہے, اور وہ کوشش بھی کر رہے ہیں. جتنے کیمپس یہاں پہ ہیں ان میں سے کوئی کیمپ بھی زبردستی نہیں خالی کرایا گیا, اور نہ ہی اس بات کی نہ کوئی فوٹیج آپ کے پاس ہوگی, نہ ہی ایسا کوئی کیس رپورٹ ہوا ہوگا. جہاں تک لیگل لوگوں کی ان تک رسائی ہے تو بالکل ہم لیگل لوگوں کی رسائی ان تک ممکن بنائیں گے. ہم چاہتے ہیں کہ ہیومن رائٹس کی جو تنظیمیں ہیں وہ اس پہ کام کریں, وہ آگے بڑھیں, اسٹیپ فارورڈ ہو. اگر کسی کو لیگل اسسٹنس کی ضرورت ہے تو خیبر پختونخوا حکومت بھی ان کو ایک بہترین لیگل اسسٹنس دے گی, اپنے لیگل ایڈوائزر ہم ان کو دیں گے. لیکن ہم یہ چاہتے ہیں کہ سڈنلی سب کچھ نہیں ہو سکتا. آپ ان کو ایک ٹائم دیں, ایک ٹائم فریم دیں, ایک ٹائم لمٹ دیں, کیونکہ لوگ یہاں پہ 40 سال سے آباد ہے, یہاں پہ ان کے کاروبار ہیں, یہاں پہ ان کی رشتہ داریاں ہیں, یہاں پہ وہ صحت کے جو مراکز یا جو مواقع وہاں افغانستان میں ہے وہ نہیں ہے. یہاں پہ جب بارڈر اوپن ہوتا تھا تو ہزاروں لوگ صرف پشاور میں اپنے یہاں پہ چیک اپس کے لیے آتے تھے. تو یہ ساری چیزیں ہمیں دیکھنی ہوں گی, اور ساری چیزوں کو ایک سب سے پہلا جو پہلو ہے وہ انسانی حقوق کا پہلو ہے. اس پہلو کو مد نظر رکھ کے ہی کوئی کارروائی کرنی چاہیے, اور خیبر پختونخوا کی حکومت کو اگر ایسا کوئی کیس رپورٹ ہوتا ہے تو ضرور ہم اس پہ ایکشن لیں گے.
بہت شکریہ شفیع جان صاحب آپ کے ٹائم دینے کا اور صوبائی حکومت کا موقف ہمارے ساتھ شیئر کرنے کا. اور جو آخر میں آپ نے اسسٹنس کی بات کی, آپ نے آن دا ریکارڈ چونکہ یہ بات کی ہے, سو وی ول ہولڈ یو ٹو اٹ اگر ضرورت پڑی.
جی انشاءاللہ.
تھینک یو جی, تھینک یو. We'll move on to our next distinguished guest, and I would like to continue with the conversation about the situation on the ground. And I would like to request Mudassir Javed Saab to share with us his assessment of what has been happening with the refugees on the ground, because SHARP has a presence in Pakistan as well as in Afghanistan. SHARP is also the public face that is dealing with the refugees on behalf of the UNHCR as well, to an extent, in partnership with them. And you receive a lot of cases of Afghans who come to you for their registration and for the situations that they face. So what is your assessment of what is happening with them, the scale of it, the impact of this, the arrest, the harassment, the mistreatment that we keep hearing about, that we keep talking about? So we would like to know your views on this and your insights. Thank you.
It's a great honor to be here, and I'm very thankful for all the organizers of Asma Jahangir conference to bring us here together to share our insights on a very important topic, Afghan refugees. Of course, SHARP is a partner of UNHCR from last 26 years. We have been the first contact point for anybody who enters legally or illegally to Pakistan and wants to seek asylum. We have 400 lawyers across Pakistan, offices. We have been training police officials, judges on international protection, human rights, refugee rights, lawyers, public prosecutors, local leaders, and of course civil society organization. Whatever has happened since 2023, we have never ever seen this in Pakistan. You just mentioned that Pakistan previous Prime Minister announced citizenship for Pakistani announced. That was actually Karachi airport, and on that we on the base of the statement, and if you look at 2nd February 2017 decision from the Cabinet Division, they took 4 decisions. First was enactment of national refugee law, second to registered unregistered Afghan refugees, and the third was to start a visa regime, and enactment of national refugee law, of course, I said earlier. So these were the 4, and visa regime. So with the support of Saffron and of course UNHCR, government established 41 centers across Pakistan and registered many Afghans and issued ACC card. So there was, after pure card, they were the most protected population of Afghan refugees here in Pakistan with the legal documentation. And others were asylum seeker certificates holders from UNHCR, and they were protected under mandate of UNHCR and the government of Pakistan. But all of a sudden, everything was rejected in one single SRO issued by Ministry, declared every individual in Pakistan was undocumented or illegal. Then, of course, we have a very uncertain situation in Pakistan. There were security challenges, economic challenges, and of course, political challenges as well. Under this, what was happening, we have seen that unprecedented this arrest or detention of including women and children. We have been in first phase, we were able to access the holding centers, speak to the lawyer, the people, authorities there, and we were able to release women and children on a humanitarian basis, or maybe the documentation and letters they had from different embassies. But in second phase, we had a very limited access, and in third phase, after PR card announcement, we don't have any access. Any UN or EU offices or anybody who is in Pakistan, we are unable to. And before that, we have also been to cabinet, we presented suggestions to the subcommittee, and we have been to parliament, we submitted 6 suggestions that how we should take up this matter, because it's very sensitive. There are hundreds of females, especially in last wave of Afghan refugees. We always call, there are 4 waves of Afghan refugees who came into Pakistan. The last wave had so many children and women. There were judges, there were public prosecutors, women activists, civil society professionals. They were most sensitive group we have ever received in Pakistan. So there was all of a sudden there was a planning to register them, give them asylum and each and everything. All of a sudden there was a government decision that we are not giving them any documentation or asylum, and we're starting deporting them. And the profile they had and the issues they had in Afghanistan, of course we have office in Kabul, we know each and every day there is a reports of arrest or detention, there is a torture reports, especially women and activists. So whatever we had done over the last 46 years went just on the drain. And Pakistan, we have always been advocating that these people, Afghans have 64% of young people. They are very talented. Afghan is a very rich culture. We share borders with them, and we should not send them as an enemies. We send them as our friends, because we're going to stay with them forever. But unfortunately, what were the government priorities was set, and they started deporting. And there were so many painful stories of people. People had businesses over the year. In just 1 minute, blink of eye, they were told to leave the country, and they were not able to wind up the businesses and all these things. Of course, we are looking at the humanitarian angle. We have to look the other perspective as well. Government of Pakistan, whatever the government was in power throughout this 46 years, they have been very accommodating, very generous, especially our communities. They have sacrificed their resources, their places, their emotions, everything. But what happened? International community, global community never ever put their 100% effort to address this challenge. There were never regional partners were not effectively engaged to drive a durable solution, because I think without international community or global community support, we are unable to solve this issue permanently, because there are if we have sent 2 million Afghans from Pakistan, Iran has also sent 3 million Afghans, so there are nearly 5 millions, and there is over 20 million displaced people in Afghanistan. There are highest number of people who are marginalized there. They are unable to find any decent work in Afghanistan. So if you look at the statistic globally, there are 117 million people are forcefully displaced across the globe, and there are including 42.5 million refugees, of course 66.8 million IDPs across the globe, and 8.4 million asylum seekers. And with the passage of time, every state is putting their efforts to securitize themselves, to make their safe borders. Even EU countries are making hard measures to reject asylum applications, or to not to welcome migrants or refugees. So this phenomena is putting many people at risk. And what Ms. Sabah has said, as a Muslim country, as we are culture and background, values, whatever we have, but unfortunately we have been unable to accommodate, especially girls and females. They have to adopt, when there is no job opportunity. Pakistan is a very expensive country, and let me say that sometimes we need to put a brave face and say that when we don't provide opportunity to women and girls, they are exploited everywhere. They have to go for livelihood exchange for sex and all these things, just to live their life, to feed their children and all that. So these have been challenges, but I still request all the honorable minister is sitting here. Of course, they have their own plans, but we would request that we should consider these Afghans as through the lens of humanity. Humanitarian lenses, not security lens, or because these people are vulnerable here in Pakistan. When they go back, they are more vulnerable there as well. We have 64% young people. They can be compromised in the hands of militant, these terrorists, and it can always be difficult in future. They might come back to Pakistan, and but we don't want to discuss or say these things. We want to live peacefully with our neighbors, with the communities, and we want dignity and respect and peace for each and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mudassir Sahab. And with that, now that we have an understanding, a sense of the situation on the ground, I would like to move to Ms. Philippa Candler, the representative of UNHCR Pakistan. And what we wanted to try to understand was two things, at least from the UNHCR's perspective. First is, what has UNHCR's position been and their role in this current situation, especially with the Afghans? As Mudassir Saab said, this is unprecedented. The nature of the drive is unprecedented. The kinds of harassment and other issues that Afghans are facing is unprecedented. The scale of it is unprecedented. So what has UNHCR's position and role been in this situation? And adding to this, what Sabah Gul Khatak Sahiba mentioned earlier about the global humanitarian aid cuts and their impact then on the situation for Afghans within Pakistan, because and then the impact on UNHCR, and then the situation in Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is also, as I mentioned, they don't have a functioning government. There's no state in effect right now. So I wanted to request you for your views on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here today. So maybe I think that we've heard a lot in today's session from my fellow panelists, but also in the plenary sessions this morning about the wonderful job that Pakistan has done over the years in terms of hospitality to Afghan refugees for more than 40 years. And we do have to acknowledge that. The government as a whole, but also the provincial governments of KPK and Balochistan in particular, as well as others, have hosted these people, and the communities have extended the warm hospitality that Pakistan is so famous for to the Afghan refugee population. And UNHCR has walked that journey alongside the government and the people of Pakistan. We've been in Pakistan since the late 70s. We signed our first agreement with the government of Pakistan in 1979, and we have been working alongside to provide support to the government, but also to communities, and as well as to the Afghan refugees themselves over those years. But as you say, times are changing. Times are changing globally. I think that we've all see and hear, and certainly heard good examples this morning about the whole questioning over fundamental and human rights that are going on. And I think Pakistan is also involved in some of those discussions. And we are seeing, since the illegal foreigners repatriation plan was implemented in 2023, a real move to return Afghans. It's been very much premised on the security argument, of course, and we can come back to that in a minute, but the end result is that in 2025 alone, over 1 million Afghans were forced to return to Afghanistan. And as you said, the situation in Afghanistan is at best very, very fragile as well. So it's very difficult for people, even those who want to go back. If you go back in large numbers, it puts a heavy strain on the situation there. I always think of UNHCR as a rights-based protection organization. Obviously, that's our mandate, but also a pragmatic one. I think that there are ways to address the legitimate concerns of the government of Pakistan and other governments around security, around controlling their borders, but at the same time ensure that people are protected. And these are some of the discussions that we have been having with the government of Pakistan in different fora over the last 2.5 to 3 years. For example, on the security front, we're saying, yes, you have legitimate concerns, so it's better that you know who is on your territory. The latest implementation of the IFRP Phase 3, which removed the proof of registration cards from 1.4 million Afghans, has actually rendered these people illegal in the country. Now, many have gone back, as I said, but many are still here. But the authorities of the government don't anymore have that data. So isn't it better to continue to register these people, to have them documented, so you know where they are, so you know what they're doing? And also so that they can be visible members of society who could work, who could, if the government of Pakistan enacted a mechanism to do so, who could pay taxes, who could be active members of society, and at the same time it would mitigate some of the security concerns that the governments have, because they would have the information and would know where they are. So that's one of the requests that we're making to the government. For people who are here, who've been born here, who may be married to Pakistanis in some cases, who spend their life here, have a system in place to regularize their status so that for humanitarian reasons they can remain legally, but also contribute, run businesses. The other request that we make to the government of Pakistan is around people who have international protection needs, our primary mandate. So people who can't go back because they would face harm if they went back to Afghanistan. People who may be opposition to the Taliban authorities, or people who for ethnic or religious reasons do not necessarily align themselves with the Taliban ideology. Human rights activists, we've been hearing about some of the challenges this morning that human rights activists have. They still have these challenges in Afghanistan. Female-headed households, again, how are they meant to survive and bring up their children if they go back to an environment where they're not allowed to work, where they can't send their girls to school? So we're saying to Pakistan, please make an exemption mechanism for these people who are refugees and who would be at risk if they go back to Afghanistan. We think it's actually not that many. Our estimate, and this is together with the Ministry of Saffron and other partners, for people who would fall into that category is about 250,000. That's not a big number for a country like Pakistan to extend some kind of legal protection status to. And it doesn't have to be forever either. When we look at what the European countries have done for Ukrainian refugees, they've given them temporary protection, meaning that they reevaluate it, and if and when the conditions change, people can go back. Pakistan could do something similar. The third request we have is also with regard to voluntary return in dignity for other people who want to go back, and there are these people. Give them time, and I think some of the other panelists have echoed this. Give them time to wind up their affairs. If they were born in Pakistan, it's a big move to go back to a country you've never been to. And it's winter, and the situation in Afghanistan is difficult. There is a lot of food insecurity, no livelihoods, a drought. So give these people a bit more time to go back. So that's our main request to the government of Pakistan, or along those three lines. But you also raised another question about, and we've submitted proposals to this effect, just to mention. So concrete suggestions are on the table. You mentioned the global context with regard to funding, and yes, it's true the funding situation is a big concern to UN organizations, but also many NGOs, national and international NGOs, many of our partners, we all share these concerns. It's a difficult time. We've had our budget for Pakistan cut by 50% as a result of the funding cuts, but also as a result of the government's policy, because it's hard to justify sustained funding if the government has a policy of returning people. I still firmly believe that there is a willingness to fund the humanitarian and the refugee situation in Pakistan, not least because for many donors it's more difficult for them to provide funding to Afghanistan and Iran. So Pakistan is a country where if there are protection concessions made, I believe that there would be funding available. For Afghanistan, it's had a major impact. We hear all the time about the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan. With regard to the returnees specifically, UNHCR's budget for Afghanistan has been so dramatically cut that the return grant, the cash grant we used to give to people going back has been cut completely. It's now only a few really vulnerable caseloads that get a sum of money, and this of course means that people have even less means to integrate themselves, which of course provokes onward movement and doesn't help to stabilize people on return. So that is also a big challenge, and I think we do have to acknowledge it. I think I'll end there if I may.
Thank you, Ms. Philippa. And with that, we'll move to our final panelist for this session, Barrister Akil Malik Saab. I wanted to ask you questions at the end because I wanted you to hear our other panelists first and get a sense of the kind of harassment that we are speaking about, the scale of it, the scope of it. So I'd like your response on that. That is one aspect of my question to you. The other thing that I wanted you to shed some light on was with the fact that when we're talking about this current drive, it began in 2023. It began under the caretaker government. The caretaker government had no mandate. There was no parliament. There's a very strong perception about the caretaker government that it was the security establishment's front, and that this policy comes from them, that this is not a civilian policy, but that this is a security establishment's policy, and that this civilian government is sort of providing the front for it and is implementing it on their behalf. So if we have a parliament now, since 2024, we've not seen any substantial discussion on this in the parliament. We've seen discussions in certain committees, but the discussions relate more to numbers and figures of Afghans who've been expelled, not so much about their rights or about their dignity or about what has been happening with them. So, I mean, what is the government's position on this, with this? And the third and the final aspect of my question to you would be that, as has been discussed earlier, there is no state in Afghanistan at this time. Pakistan, like I mentioned in my introduction, has had a major role in Afghanistan, so we do bear some responsibility. So we've not done a favor to Afghans by hosting them, but it was also a consequence of our interventions that we have engaged in when it comes to Afghanistan. And knowing what we are sending them back to, especially Afghan women and girls, and now with the Taliban justifying slavery, for instance, gender apartheid is already there. They're also stripping away their legal personhood, so a woman who's being beaten up cannot get divorced, for instance. That is one of the edicts that has also come out in the recent penal code. So I wanted your response, the government's response on how does the government, and again, security is easy, as some of our other panelists said. We've expelled more than 1 million Afghans, but terrorism hasn't stopped. It has only increased. So certainly there's more to terrorism than just Afghans and blaming them. I mean, so your responses to these questions. Thank you.
Oh, it's working. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and it's truly an honor to be sharing this panel with very learned experts in their respective fields. Lots of questions and lots of comments that have been made, but I think I'll sort of begin from just reiterating the position. I mean, of course, this fora is certainly one where one has to be very candid, and I think if I present you the government's official position, that probably wouldn't do justice to this fora itself, but I think some of the thoughts that I'll be sharing or presenting before with my fellow panelists as well, and as to the audience, I would certainly wouldn't be mincing my words. So be rest assured with that. Of course, the government's policy is certainly in place, and I think I'll start with the 2023, but I think before we start with 2023, we'll have to go back in time, not so far back in the 70s or the 80s, but I think let's just stick to the near future, the fall of Kabul in 2021. And if you really have been following the events and the government in place at the time, I'm not going to criticize anybody, but I think we also need to be aware that security has been a real concern and an issue in Pakistan. Having said that, one of the issues, I think, with the current crisis that have sort of blossomed or bloomed with regards to the refugees being sent back, of course you'll have to see of how they actually entered the country. And I think Pakistan alone is not to be blamed in all of this, because after the fall of Kabul in 2021, certain promises were made by some Western countries as well. And this is part of the problem. And I think you can't just wash away your hands and just say, well, we're done now because we've provided a third safe country
Recording in progress.
For those refugees or for those asylum seekers that were brought to Pakistan, left not just on the doorstep, but of course, were facilitated to have entered the country without any document. I mean, I know of so many cases, and I'm sure some of my panelists will also agree with the fact that people entered on photocopies of their passports. People entered on photocopies of their tazkiras. So this is something, you can't, I mean, in a very civilized society or, any other country would not permit this. I know as a Pakistani, I would not be able to enter any country, whether over land or through air, without a proper, valid international travel document. And that's my passport. So the current crisis, so to speak, whether that's connected with the security, whether that's connected with the asylum seekers or refugees, or the situation in general in Afghanistan, you'll have to see it from that perspective. We had a lot of these individuals that had crossed because they were promised a safe passage, because Pakistan was supposed to be a transiting point. But at the same time, I mean, of course, we know that COVID took place, and then the Western countries, I'm not going to mince my words, and there's no other better way to say it, they just forgot about these individuals. And I'm happy to share this with you very candidly, because this is the forum for that. When the deportations were taking place, and not just the deportations, these refugees or asylum seekers that were on their way to safer third countries, and Pakistan was only supposed to be a transiting point for them, but of course that transit period exceeded more than 3 years. I mean, the fall of Kabul in 2021, and we're now in 2026. So that's quite a long period of time. But one of the European ambassadors had reached out to me, and they said, because the government now has this policy from 2023, so we don't know, and we have these people on the list. And I said, well, have you shared this list with any of the authorities? Well, according to them, apparently, this list was shared. But of course, when you have a huge number of asylum seekers or refugees or those that are in transit or waiting to be taken to that third country as per the promise that was made by the Western country, of course, I'm not going to denounce that some of them who were still waiting might have actually gotten deported through these deportation camps. And this is something, I mean, of course, there's certain, there might have been a few cases where the procedure might not have been followed in true letter and spirit. I'm also not going to mince my words on this, but at the same time, you'll have to see the bigger picture. One of the things that was, one of the questions or the concerns that was posed perhaps was with regards to the decision of the caretaker government. We, at the time, because obviously you say the caretaker government was perhaps allegedly, according to you, was a mask for the establishment, but I do not agree with that. Even though the caretaker government sort of exceeded their timeline that they were supposed to be in that position, or in, in taking care of things for the interim period. Of course, a decision by the caretaker government, and we've got notifications to this effect, that any decision that will be taken by the caretaker government through this period of time, if it pertains to the security or the national security of the country, or foreign relations, or any other matters pertaining to within sort of this area, then it will be legitimized and it will be carried forward as per the policy of the state. The other things that you had mentioned, Pakistan's position on the refugees now. I mean, to be very frank and fair with you, we've been hospitable for over 40 years. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, we should be. But I think also how and what I've seen thus far, the position of the government is very clear. We have prioritized the safety, the security, the sovereignty, and the national security of not just our country, but also our citizens. And that's what you see in other parts of the world as well. We're not an anomaly. We're not different to what's been happening in the United States, in the European countries, in other countries as well. Of course, we have to prioritize the safety and security of our citizens because we cannot bear any further losses than we already have. And one has to see it from a pragmatic point of view, or from the point of view of prioritizing not just our country but also our citizens. And you'll have to really do. It's a balancing act of how I see it. And I mean, of course, the scales might tilt, on the other side at times. But also, you'll have to see that we've been working very closely with the UNHCR, not just from now, but for the past, many years. Even though we're not signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention, but we have been hosting refugees and we have been hosting asylum seekers. There's been many judgments from the courts, but of course there's been various legislations or amendments as well within the Pakistan Citizenship Act as well. But of course, I think anywhere you see this trend in other countries of the world as well, and this is really very candidly being shared here, and I'm happy to share this. Are we really that blind not to see those asylum seekers and refugees at the doorstep of Europe? Have we forgotten the island of Lesbos in Greece? Have we really forgotten those asylum seekers and refugees and their economic migrants? I have no qualms in accepting this, but being shot with straight fires on those boats in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Where's the UNHCR then? Where are the other UN agencies? Nobody's speaking about this, but when it comes to Pakistan, I mean, I know, but of course, with a lot of, of course, you have offices in other parts of the world as well, but nobody's actually condemning that. But what gets condemned is what happens in Pakistan, because that's, maybe perhaps more palatable or appealable. No offense to anybody and to none of the UN agencies. We really admire your incredible work, and we are willing and wanting to work with you. But of course, you'll have to see and you'll have to understand the perspective that, or our sort of perspective from our citizens, from our country, from our people as well. We've been at the forefront of this for far too long now, and I think the decision that was made was really, of course, we believe in the dignified return of the refugees. We have various options, which obviously, we've had the Afghan origin card, the proof of registration card, and again, there might have been a few cases where there might have been POR card holders. They might have actually gotten deported in these and by mistake, not on purpose. But going back to the main issue of how the situation in Afghanistan is right now, why is it that all of the countries of the world, they've allowed Afghanistan and the Afghan Taliban regime to operate until now, since 2021 till 2026? Nobody's willing to engage with them. And I'm not saying Pakistan, but it's the rest of the world as well. And everybody's got their own issues. The US or the other countries, the European countries, everybody's got their own issues. But of course, when it comes to, because we're right next door, so it's easy to point fingers at us. Let that not be the case. We definitely understand, we hold the human rights in the highest of regards, and we obviously understand the plight of the women and the girls in Afghanistan. Of course, we've condemned that at all forums as well. From the government, as well as the civil society, everybody. And we really believe that in order to be able to work with UN agencies, with the rest of the world, and Afghanistan as well, we'll have to find a collective solution to the issue of or the aftermath of 2021, the fall of Kabul, because it really baffles me at times that we have a regime there and nobody's actually willing to address the issues, but everybody is going to point fingers when it comes to other parts of the world, including Pakistan. So it's a matter of conscience as well, and I think countries have shifted from, again, I could be wrong, but that's my personal understanding, not the government's understanding. So let me be very frank and clear about this, that we've sort of had that shift from a upholding the rights or the rights-based approach to a security-centric or security or protective. And like you said, you're quite right in pointing that, but that's a trend that's seen all over the world. So, and lastly, when you said terrorism and Afghanistan, there's been many cases, irrefutable evidence, where Afghan citizens and Afghan soil has been used in a number of times. And I'm not making this up, because obviously now being part of the government, I see things, and I've seen things from both sides as well. So it's very difficult, and I'm not going to play the blame game, sure. But equally, when you find that irrefutable evidence one too many times, where whether that's the regime or the proscribed organizations or the banned outfits that have been operating freely on the Afghan soil, planning attacks against Pakistan, Pakistani citizens, and just trying to create a mayhem and chaos in Pakistan, that cannot be left unaddressed.
Sure.
That needs to be addressed. But overall, the government is definitely committed, and like I said, I think the last point I would certainly want to make is that we've got a one-document regime now. Even though we have a porous border, we've fenced it, but still we find that we still have illegal crossings into Pakistan, and also vice versa back to Afghanistan as well. And lastly, a new visa policy which is in pipeline after all of these repatriations, and we are almost we've finalized this new visa policy, which will actually attract, and like I think some of the one of the participants or the panelists had questioned that, let them have businesses here. Of course, we're not stopping anybody from having their businesses or having businesses in Pakistan, whether that be Afghan or any other citizen. So we're going to encourage, and the reason and the point, or the thought process behind this new visa policy is for those Afghans who have the means, who already have businesses here. They will have to come the proper way and the right way through legitimate and legal means.
Sure.
I hope I've tried to sort of cover everything.
Thank you so much. We have to unfortunately end our session here because we have the panelists for the next session who are waiting for their turn. But before we end, because we wanted to have another round of questions with the panelists, and then we also wanted to sort of accommodate any questions from the audience, but since we can't do that, I'll just quickly, in 30 seconds, just responding, because you're, again, Barrister Saab, you're representing the government, and we don't get this opportunity to speak to the government directly because it's a little difficult to. But anyway, so the points that you mentioned about Europe, we are in Pakistan, we are Pakistani citizens, we are in this region. We do condemn whatever is happening there, we've condemned that, and we should, like you rightly said, but whatever is happening here affects us directly, which is why we're more concerned about what's happening right now. So two wrongs, again, don't make a right. So the fact
Amendment 26, 27th Constitutional Amendments और उसका context, क्योंकि अभी तक इस पे बहुत सी बहस हुई है. आपने पार्लियामान में भी देखा होगा, मीडिया में भी देखा होगा, बहुत से इवेंट्स में सुना होगा. ये एक ऐसी चीज़ है जिसमें पूरा मुल्क ऐसे है जैसे डिवाइडेड है. कुछ लोगों के लिए ये अमेंडमेंट्स अदलिया की आज़ादी पे इस कदर एक बुरा खौफनाक अटैक थी कि अदलिया की आज़ादी को एक तरह दफन कर दिया इन अमेंडमेंट्स ने. कुछ और लोगों का कहना है कि जुडिशरी जो है वो इस हद तक अपने एक आइनी रोल से ट्रांसग्रेस कर चुकी थी, उससे बाहर जा चुकी थी कि इन अमेंडमेंट्स की ज़रूरत थी ताकि जुडिशरी वापस अपना जो एक काम है उसका वापस अपना जो रोल है उसको सही तरह निभा सके, और जो एक पोलिटिसाइजेशन जुडिशरी में नज़र आती थी वो ख़त्म हो सके. तो सच्चाई क्या है असल में? हमें इन अमेंडमेंट्स को किस तरह देखना चाहिए पाकिस्तान की ख़ास तौर पे जो तारीख़ रही है उस लिहाज से, उस पे हम आज बात करेंगे. हमारे पास एक बहुत डिस्टिंग्विश्ड पैनल है, मुख्तलिफ़ वॉक्स ऑफ लाइफ से उनका ताल्लुक़ है और मुख्तलिफ़ ज़ावियों से वो इस इशू पे काम कर चुके हैं, इस इशू से उनका वाबस्तगी है. तो मैं वेलकम करना चाहूँगी हमारी पैनल को. सबसे पहले हमारे पास हैं ऑनरेबल जस्टिस अली बाकर नजफ़ी साहब, जो फ़ेडरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल कोर्ट के एक जस्टिस हैं. इसके अलावा हमारे साथ हैं ज़हूर अहमद शाहवानी साहब, जो फॉर्मर जज हैं फ़ेडरल शरीयत कोर्ट के. हमारे साथ हैं इरफान कादिर साहब, जो फॉर्मर अटॉर्नी जनरल रह चुके हैं. इसके अलावा हमारे पास हैं कामरान मुर्तज़ा साहब, जो मेंबर ऑफ़ द सेनेट ऑफ़ पाकिस्तान है और जमीयत उलमा इस्लाम से उनका ताल्लुक़ है. इसके अलावा हमारे साथ हैं पाकिस्तान की एक फोरमोस्ट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल स्कॉलर और रिसर्च फेलो इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट एंड इकोनॉमिक ऑल्टरनेटिव्स के साथ डॉक्टर मरियम शाहिद ख़ान, और हमारे साथ हैं लॉयर बहुत प्रोमिनेंट और पॉलिटिशियन खालिद रांझा साहब. سو میں چاہوں گی ہمارے پاس کیونکہ پینل بہت ہمارے پاس بہت کچھ ہے ان کے پاس بات کرنے کے لیے اینڈ آئی ایم شیور وہ اس موضوع پہ بہت دیر تک تفصیل سے بات کر سکیں گے، لیکن ہمارے پاس وقت بہت کم ہے، صرف 1 گھنٹہ ہے، اور میں چاہوں گی کہ آڈینس کے جو سوالات ہیں وہ بھی ہم بعد میں لے سکیں. تو ایک گزارش آپ سب سے ہے کہ آپ پلیز اپنے جو کامنٹس ہیں وہ 5 منٹ تک رکھیں تاکہ بعد میں ہمارے پاس ایک ڈسکشن کا اور کویشچن اینڈ آنسر کا بھی موقع ہو. تو لیٹس اسٹارٹ ود وی آر ویری پریولیج ٹو ہیو ود اس پاکستان کی جو کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ بنی ہے 27th امینڈمنٹ کے بعد، اس کے جسٹس نجفی. اور ان سے میرا سوال ہے کہ آپ کی نظر میں فیڈرل کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ کی کیا اہمیت ہے، اس کا کیا رول ہے اس وقت جو ملک میں ہماری ایک سیاسی اور آئینی سچویشن ہے، آپ کس طرح پلیس کرتے ہیں فیڈرل کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ کو اس میں؟ اور دوسرا اگر میں پوچھ سکوں اف آئی مے، کہ بہت سی تنقید ہوتی ہے فیڈرل کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ پر کہ وہ آزاد نہیں ہے، کہ ججز جو ہیں وہ آزادانہ طرح سے فیصلے نہیں کر سکتے. آپ اس کرٹیسزم کو کا کس طرح سے جواب دیں گے یا آپ اس کو کس طرح سے دیکھتے ہیں؟
Thank you very much, Ms. Rima Umar, for inviting me on this distinguished panel. In fact, I must congratulate all the organizers of this Asma Jahangir conference, جو کہ کافی سالوں سے منعقد ہو رہی ہے، اور اس میں ہمیشہ ڈسپیوٹڈ اور ٹیڈیس کویشچنس کو ایڈریس کیا جاتا ہے، یہی اس کا خاصہ ہے. اور میں خوش قسمت ہوں اس حوالے سے کہ آج آپ نے مجھے اس فورم پہ مدعو کیا. میں آپ سے اس کے حوالے سے کچھ گزارشات کروں گا. ایک تو یہ کہ ہمیشہ کاز اور ایفیکٹ کو ضرور ذہن میں رکھنا چاہیے کسی ایونٹ کے پہلے. کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ کا وجود 14 نومبر 2025 کو ہوا، اور اس کے بعد جو فرسٹ منڈے تھا اس میں کورٹ نے کام کرنا شروع کر دیا. شروع میں یہ کورٹ اسلام آباد ہائی کورٹ کی بلڈنگ میں ایک فلور کے اوپر سٹارٹ ہوئی. اس کے بعد پھر یہ فیڈرل کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ فیڈرل شریعت کورٹ کی بلڈنگ میں شفٹ ہو گئی، جہاں پہ اس کو ریفربش کیا گیا اور اس کو رینوویٹ کیا گیا. ابھی تک اس کورٹ نے کوئی تقریباً 2600 کیسز ڈیسائیڈ کر دیے ہیں، اور سپریم کورٹ میں جتنے کیسز کانسٹیٹیوشنل انٹرپریٹیشن کے حوالے سے وہاں پہ پینڈنگ تھے، وہ تقریباً سب کے سب جو ہیں وہ اس کورٹ میں ٹرانسفر ہو چکے ہیں، اور تقریباً اس کی تعداد جو ہے وہ 22,000 کیسز کی ہے. اس کے علاوہ اس کورٹ میں جو کیسز فائل ہو رہے ہیں ان کو جتنی جلد از جلد کوشش کی جاتی ہے کہ ان کو فکس کیا جائے اور فیصلہ کیا جائے. ابھی اس کورٹ میں ایک چیف جسٹس اور 6 ججز ہیں جو کہ تمام چاروں پروونسز سے ہیں. اس میں 4 سپریم کورٹ کے ججز ہیں جو کہ وہاں پہ کام کرتے رہے ہیں، انکلوڈنگ مائی سیلف جسٹس عامر فاروق اینڈ جسٹس حسن رضا رضوی صاحب who is a senior peonage judge, and Aminuddin Khan Sahib as the Chief Justice. یہ جو کورٹ کا معرض وجود میں آنا ہے یہ کوئی ایک انوکھی چیز نہیں ہے. دنیا میں کانسٹیٹیوشنل انٹرپریٹیشنس کے لیے کورٹس کام کرتے رہی ہیں ایکسکلوسیولی، بہت سی ایگزامپلز موجود ہیں. اور اس سے پہلے کہ یہ کورٹ معرض وجود میں آتی، ایک کانسٹیٹیوشنل بینچ کچھ عرصے کام کرتا رہا سپریم کورٹ کے اندر، جس میں ججز کو سپریم جو جوڈیشل کمیشن آف پاکستان ہے وہ اس کو چنا کرتا تھا، اور ان کو پھر اسائن کیے جاتے تھے بینچز. اب یہ سوال کہ یہ کورٹ کی ضرورت کیوں پیش آئی، یہ عام ذمہ داری سے میں آپ کو اس چیز پہ محتاطاً طریقے سے آپ سے عرض کروں گا، کیونکہ یہ ایسے کویشچنز ہیں جو کہ ہو سکتا ہے ہماری کورٹ میں بھی آ جائیں. لیکن چونکہ آپ نے سوال کیا ہے، میں اس کو کچھ 10 فیکٹرز رکھوں گا جس کی وجہ سے غالباً یہ کورٹ معرض وجود میں آنے میں اس کی بنیاد پڑی ہے. ایک تو جوڈیشل اوور ریچ کا کہا جاتا ہے کہ سپریم کورٹ نے بہت، چاہے وہ ڈومیسٹک پالیسی ہو، چاہے وہ فارن پالیسی ہو، चाहे वो इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी हो, चाहे वो एजुकेशन पॉलिसी हो, चाहे वो किसी और नौयत की पॉलिसी हो, विदाउट गेटिंग दी एक्सपर्ट्स ओपिनियन। तो ये एक इल्ज़ाम था कि जुडिशरी ने पॉलिसी मेकिंग बॉडीज़ के ऊपर इन्फ्लुएंस करना शुरू कर दिया, जो कि उनका काम नहीं था। फिर ये कहा गया कि instead of deciding the cases in accordance with law, cases were decided according to the perception, subjective perception, and not the objective perception of the judges. Obviously, the judiciary is composed of different judges coming from different background, from different areas and different educational background and different experiences. So their sense, the perception of their justice was bound to be different. So that was a great debate has been going on that this would interfere into the working of the executive. Then directly ordering, issuing directions in certain way that the domain, that the department or the institution whose primary duty was to function properly and to address those issues, they were bypassed, and directly the matter would land into the courts, and then the orders were passed directly. The result was that the issues of misgovernance were exposed, but instead of correcting them, the court used to do things itself, which probably had given rise to so many questions. Then I think another factor was following double standards. In certain cases, the question would land up of constitutional interpretation, which would require a particular interpretation, and next time some other party would land in court, and their different interpretation will be offered. So I would consider that a double standard. Also in other terms of in appointment, in key appointments in the superior judiciary. I would also consider the reporting factor, giving popular decisions, addressing the media so as to catch the tickers so that their names should be regularly, seen in the media. That is something, that is an incitement to give the popular decision. I would say that that has damaged quite a bit the perception of judiciary. And then I would lastly submit the challenging the state's authority. I'll be very frank with it. The state authority was at times challenged, which was, I think, much above the domain of the judiciary. So as per the question that it has undermined the independence of judiciary, or it has lowered down the expectation of the litigants in the court, I don't agree with this perception, because these judges of this court have vast experience of 14 years, 13 years, and more than that. And in their experience, they have dealt with many cases, many different tedious cases, the disputed cases in which the government stakes were very high, but still they came up with quite a, I'm not judging ourselves, but I will be giving a point of view that people, I think they have appreciated those decisions in many such occasions. So I would say that it is not the perfect state of affair. There are a lot of gap in between, and I think we have a full resolve to achieve that. We want to work independently, and obviously our functioning and performance will be before you, and we are always inviting you for criticism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Najifi. If I may ask a quick follow-up as well, کیونکہ آپ نے جو بات کی that will آپ کی بات will lay the foundation for the panel and what the other speakers also talk about. آپ نے بہت سی وجوہات ہمیں بتائیں کہ فیڈرل کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ کیوں ضروری تھی، لیکن مجھے ایسا لگ رہا ہے کہ اس میں زیادہ تر جو وجوہات ہیں وہ جج اسپیسیفک ہیں، انسٹیٹیوشنل نہیں ہیں. تو آپ کو کیا لگتا ہے کہ 27th امینڈمنٹ میں یا فیڈرل کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ میں ایسی انسٹیٹیوشنل یا جورسڈکشنل کیا چینجز آئی ہیں کہ اس طرح کی اوور ریچ یا ایکٹیویزم یا پالیٹکس یا ایگزیکٹو کی ڈومین میں انٹرفیئرنس ہم اب نہیں دیکھیں گے؟ انسٹیٹیوشنلی آپ کیا مختلف دیکھتے ہیں 27th امینڈمنٹ؟
میں آپ کو اپنا 7 مہینے کا ایکسپیرینس بتاؤں گا، 6-7 مہینے کا جو میرا سپریم کورٹ کا تھا. میں نے کرمنل بینچ میں کام کیا اور 3 ممبرز بینچ اکثر لاہور بھی آیا کرتا تھا اور اسلام آباد میں بھی کام کیا. تو مجھے بڑا دکھ ہوا یہاں پہ آنے کے بعد دیکھتے ہوئے کہ جو بہت سی جو اپیلس تھی لائف امپریزنمنٹ کی، وہ یہاں پہ یا تو انفرکچس ہو گئی تھی بیکاز وہ اپنے سزا گزار کے چلے گئے تھے باہر، یا وہ ان کی ڈیتھس ہو گئی تھی انسائڈ دی جیل. سو مجھے بڑا اس کا مطلب میں نے سوچتا رہا کہ کیا وجہ ہے اس کی. تو مجھے پتہ یہ لگا کہ یہاں پہ جو ججز کی جو وزٹ تھا رجسٹریز میں وہ کافی کم تھا، اور اس کی وجہ یہ تھی کہ موسٹ آف دا ٹائم دے ور پری آکیوپائڈ ان دا پرنسپل سیٹ ڈیلنگ ود دی کانسٹیٹیوشنل کویسچنز ان ڈفرینٹ بینچز. سو میرا یہ خیال ہے کہ ججز کا جو مین اسٹریم کام تھا، جو ان کا جو سبسٹینٹیو کام تھا کرمنل کیسز کا یا سول کیسز کا، وہ کسی حد تک کمپرومائز ہوا تھا بیکاز آف دیٹ. تو میرا یہ خیال ہے کہ اس کو علیحدہ کرنے کے بعد جو ہے وہ زیادہ آزادانہ طریقے سے اور وقت زیادہ دے سکیں گے اس کام کے لیے. جہاں تک آپ کے سیکنڈ پارٹ ہے، اس میں آپ کی بات سے پوری طرح متفق نہیں ہوں گا، لیکن پارشلی ہوں گا. نیچرلی کوئی ایک ایونٹ سے پیچھے بہت سے مضمرات ہوتے ہیں، بہت سی چیزیں ہوتی ہیں، لیکن ہمیں جب تاریخ محرک جب اس کو لکھے گا اور اس کی تب باتیں اس کے سامنے آئیں گی تو بہت سی چیزیں کلیئر ہوتی چلی جائیں گی. میرا یہ خیال ہے کہ یہ سسٹم کے آگے بڑھنے کی میچورٹی ہے کہ ہم ایک خاص وقت سے تجربہ حاصل کر کے اس سے بہتری کی طرف بڑھتے ہیں، اور اسی طرح سے نیشنز آگے بڑھا کرتی ہیں اور انسٹیٹیوشنز بھی گرو کرتے ہیں. تھینک یو.
تھینک یو سو مچ. دلچسپ بات یہ ہے کہ جو 184(3) سو موٹو جورسڈکشن جو بہت جس پہ کرٹیسزم ہوتا ہے، 184(3) جیسے ہی اختیارات فیڈرل کانسٹیٹیوشنل کورٹ کے بھی ہیں. تو ایز اے اسٹوڈنٹ آف لا مجھے بہت
بتائیے آواز ٹھیک ہے میری؟ جی کمپیریٹیولی